Everyone, it's Janet here at the 4-H office. I know you've all been cooped up for quite a while and probably your parents are telling you to go outside and fly a kite. Well, here's how we're going to do it today. It's a nice windy day and I have a really neat activity from the 4-H STEM Lab off of National 4-H website, which you can all download, or if you need the PDF, please just email me, message me, let me know. I will send that to you. So your materials for today's activity to make a paper kite are a hole punch, scissors, marker, ruler. I have fishing line, but you could also use embroidery floss or regular sewing thread if you have it. You'll need a straw, a sheet of paper, and some Scotch tape. The wind isn't going to pull that hard on our kites that we will need to use something a little bit heavier. Besides, we want to be able to use a hole punch to put a couple holes in your kite to put the string on. So, to get started with today's activity, if you need help cutting, please make sure you have a teen or mom and dad with you. We need one 8.5 by 11 size piece of paper, which we are just going to start folding. So we're going to take an upper corner and fold it over to the next side. The activity guide does have everything labeled with letters to make it easy for you to follow along. So we're going to fold our paper so that we have sort of a triangle with a 2.5-inch block at the bottom. What we're going to do is take our scissors and we're actually going to cut this strip right off. Save it though, we will need this for the tail of our kite. So we're going to cut a nice straight line. Set this aside for our tail. Our next step, and you're just going to fold it until you get this type of shape, which is just a really long, thin, narrow triangle. Following that, we're going to take our shape. We're going to take the top, we're going to fold it one way, down, make a nice strong crease, fold it back the other way, making a nice strong crease. We are going to put some creases into the nose of our kite just to make it a little bit more aerodynamic so that the wind comes up underneath and lifts our kite and helps in the flight. So we're just going to open our kite a little bit and fold the tips down to give them a little bit more angle, a little bit more surface area for the wind to get underneath and uplift. All right, so we do have this type of shape on our kite today. If I can get all the folds to work with me, we're going to. All right. So our kite will have this type of shape to it, kind of like a diamond. So our next step is to put a bridle on. And I didn't know what a bridle for a kite was. I'm thinking, what, we have to have headgear like for horses? Where's the bit going to go on this bad boy? But then I realized a bridle just means some sort of harness for your kite so that when you have your paper out there, the wind doesn't take it like a paper airplane and run off with it. In order to do that, we're going to take a small piece of Scotch tape. On the underside, on your major crease, about 1/3 of the way down, we're just going to put the tape over the crease, covering both sides of our paper, and we're just going to take the hole punch and put a hole in it. Now the tape acts as a little bit more stability, so if the wind is whipping, especially if you're using fishing line like I am, which is much thinner, more likely to cut through your paper, the tape actually acts to stabilize that so that you don't lose your string, your bridle on your kite. Interesting little fact that I found out, kites are actually 2,200 years old, and of course Benjamin Franklin used a kite and a key to prove that lightning was electricity, right? So our next step is to All right, to put on our tail, what we're going to do is actually take this 2.5-inch strip of paper that we have left, and we're going to cut it into 4 strips, very thin strips, but 4 of them that we're going to tape together to make a streamer. So you can measure this and do the math if you want to. I'm just going to kind of do a general size. I'm not going to be too precise today. All right. We make our little marks so that we have everything sort of about the same width. Using our ruler, we're going to connect our 2 little dash marks, one at each end of your paper, to make a straight line. All right, when we have 3 straight lines and 4 strips, we're just going to cut along the lines and tape these together to form a nice tail or streamer. All right, once my strips are cut, I'm just going to overlap them a tiny bit, not a whole lot, because I want a big, long, fancy streamer on my kite. What I'm going to do is just take a piece of tape, put it over the front of my strips, fold the edges around the back to make sure that I'm taped on really well, and that I don't lose my streamer halfway up in the air. Once my streamer is all taped together, we are going to tape it to the tail end of our kite. So how do we know what's the tail end and what's the front end? Our tail end is actually going to be the longer, thinner part here at the bottom. This is our tail end. Our nose of our kite is going to be the thicker, wider part at the front. So, another piece of tape. One end of our streamer, we're just going to put the tape on the back. And we're actually going to tape our tail right onto our kite. We're just going to give the paper streamer, the tail, just a little tiny fold so it goes over that crease on the body. And voila, we have our streamer. All right, we're going to use a straw for the handle that our string is going to go around, our excess string for our kite. If you don't have a straw, if you have a marker, a twig, a screwdriver, just something round that you can kind of reel up. When you're done with your kite, you can always put your screwdriver back in Dad's toolbox, put the marker back in the drawer, or keep it all out, keep it together. So what we're going to do is take about 6 to 8 feet of line. This is going to be really hard to see because, you know, fishing line is clear, but you can use just regular thread for a sewing project. If you had yarn, you could probably use that as well. Anything that's pretty lightweight and not going to weigh your kite down today. So the hole that we put in, this is where we're creating our bridle to hold it together. What I'm going to do is just put the fishing line through the hole and just start tying it. I'm going to do a bunch of square knots to make sure that it doesn't come undone. If you were really concerned about your knots not staying, what you could do is put a bunch of square knots in, then take the string, the fishing line, and run some tape around it to hold it in place. I'm pretty confident that mine will hold. So I'm going to put 3 square knots in. Once I have my square knots in, I'm just going to kind of pull out 6 to 8 feet. If you're a little tiny clover bud person, you might want 3 or 4 feet. I'm going to cut it, grab my straw, take the other end of my string, and just do a bunch of square knots if I can hang on to it. Or you could tape it on, totally fine as well. Fishing line, if you guys are using it, is probably going to be tricky to keep it from knotting. So just be aware of that. So once you get a few square knots in, what we're going to do is just gently put this back on the spool. Just wind your string right around. Once you have your kite all together, if you're using plain white paper or any sort of plain paper, if you want to paint or color with crayons, color pencils, markers, this is your opportunity to do that. I'm going to reel in about half the length of my line here. I do want it to be long enough so that when I do go outside, it will catch, the wind will catch it, and have enough line so my kite actually flies up higher. So I have my pink kite and my orange kite. I'm actually going to go out and fly my orange kite because that's my most favorite color in the whole world. So I will get downstairs, get that going, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so we have our kites made, and the next step is to make sure your streamer, your tail, is untangled and that you have enough line let out to let it fly. And so let's see what happens. Woo! It's going pretty good. It works, guys, it works. And that is how we fly our kite today. For more exciting Shenango County 4-H projects, see us on Shenango County 4-H on Facebook and our YouTube channel, Shenango County 4-H.